Hi, this is Kim with Mom's Creative Moments. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to day 5 of our trip to Ireland. Today we are going to visit Blarney. Blarney is not just a castle. Blarney is kind of the name of the whole community and town in that area. Blarney is a castle. Blarney is a garden, multiple gardens really. It's a huge, huge, huge area. And in addition to that, there's a woolen mill that is right across the street from the entrance to Blarney Castle that is top notch. It's the largest woolen mill shop that I think we saw on our entire trip. And we thoroughly enjoyed going through that and then eating lunch next door at the little restaurant that they have there, which is actually quite large. So it was a very, very fun-filled day, and we even got to see a memorial that was built for the Indians here in America, the Native Americans who contributed to help ease the suffering of those who were suffering through the famine over in Ireland. So lots of history on this day of our trip. Lots of great experiences. There will be several layouts involved in completing today's part of our trip, so I hope that you're in for the long haul, because there's going to be quite a few, because we just took a ton of pictures on this particular day, and so it'll take us a little while to get through all of those. Today's layout basically is just our wake up, our breakfast, and our journey to get there. And it was a lot of fun also. I hope that you're excited to go on this journey with me. And let's check out my workspace and we'll get underway. All right, so this is my workspace for today. And you may recognize these papers. These are from the 2021 National Scrapbook Day that Creative Memories had, and these are from the National Scrapbook Day project recipe kit, and we're going to use them today to create sketch number 1 from the October virtual crop sketches. And I'm going to do something unusual with it in that I'm not only going to turn it into a 2-page sketch. This is the second sketch for the month, so it won't, the right hand side of the layout will not look like that. But I'm also going to invert it, so or rotate it. So I'm going to turn it this way. And the reason is because I have more horizontal photos than I do vertical photos that need to go on this layout. So by turning it, then I can utilize these spaces like they're designed and use them as horizontal photos and still keep the integrity of the sketch for the most part. I'm not sure how many of these additional circles are going to make it into our design, because you guys know I like to have more photos than spots like that, but we'll see what happens as we get there. I pulled out my vellum adhesive. That's unusual. I have permanent. This is the permanent and repositionable adhesive. So we're going to get to those in a little bit. I also pulled out the Rolling Hills Border Maker cartridge. This was re-released recently, and so I'm hoping that many of you have this in your stash. This is a fun one to use, and I like to use it when I have photos that are scenic. And so several of the photos we're going to be using in this layout are of scenery, and so I just thought it would be appropriate. So we're going to use that to create our border. Let's go ahead and get some things cut. So I have, let me just move these pages out of the way here for a second. And those of you who've been watching my channel will have noticed that rainbow. We are starting to day 5 of this trip to Ireland. And so we're going to have a day marker that's added to this layout. We're also going to have a map added to this layout to show the transitions that we made in our driving on this particular day. So we have to make room for those amongst our photos, or with, you know, as one of the photos. Basically, they're going to take a slot. So, and let's grab, I'm going to grab my 12-inch trimmer, and we're going to start there. Then we're going to just cut some of these pieces. So I'm going to use this paper right here. Come on, get up there. Okay, so I'm going to use this paper right here, the stripes. The stripes have always reminded me, and maybe it's because of the texturing of the lighter green stripe, but these have reminded me for a long time of a wall that maybe had wallpaper on it, or just the texture in between the stripes just reminds me of like a plastered wall that's been painted. And so I'm going to use this today to kind of indicate a plastered wall. And because you'll see some of the photos that we are using in this layout actually start with our breakfast experience at the hotel where we are staying. So we're going to use a 12-inch piece of this, but you can see here it's 7.5 by 12. So we're going to use 7.5 by 12 of both of these sheets. So that means I'm going to need to pull the arm on my trimmer out from underneath so that I can cut this at 7.5. I'm stacking these because I'm going to do both sides the same. And I want my lines to be vertical, vertical rather than horizontal. If I had it horizontal, it would look like shiplap, and I don't want it to look that way. I want it to look more like the vertical lines that someone would on purpose add in to their onto their wall. Okay, so we're going to use that piece like that. Then we're going to flip this over. And we've got now 3 pieces that are almost the same size. I've got a 5-inch and two 5-inch and one 5.5-inch piece. Now the piece that is going behind these photos is meant to be 5.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and use my 5.5-inch piece as that piece, but I do need to trim it to 10 inches. That means I need to take 2 inches off, and I'm going to just go ahead and estimate 1/4 inch on the end right here, because when because I know the end of my grid is 1 3/4 inch, so I can visualize an extra 1/4 inch. That's not too hard. And go ahead and cut. It's also not critical that I have it exactly in the right place. So that will work for me. Okay. Now for the second page, because I only had one that was 5.5 inches, I can use one of these that is 5 inches. And I'm going to go ahead and just cut that the same length. So I'm going to stack these on top so I can see where it is that I cut that other piece, and then line it up so that I can cut this piece the same. I just flipped my mat strip underneath, so I apologize if I have to go back and forth a little bit. Sometimes it's still difficult for me to put a lot of pressure on my palm and on my fingers. So we all know that when you're breaking in a matte strip, you have to put a little bit more pressure than you normally do, and sometimes that's hard for me, so please forgive me for that. Okay, so we've got this dark strip now that's left, and we've got the shamrocks or the clovers, which I think are just super cute, and the back side of that is this cute little green patterned paper. And we need the circles possibly, and we need to punch a strip. So I'm going to punch the strip using the clover. So let me go ahead and move my trimmer out of the way and grab my custom border maker system. I'm going to grab my clover paper, put that right in there, and we're going to just cut our trees using the clover paper, which may seem kind of weird, but I think it'll turn out cute. We'll see. If it doesn't, we can always flip it over and use the green side on the back. Okay, so here again, my hands are not liking this part, so I have to sort of try things, and when my hands decide that they're not up for it, I have to figure out another way. So here we are, figuring out another way. Thank goodness I did one at a time, so my left hand is pretty good, but my right hand is still pretty sensitive. And I get overconfident because it's doing well enough that I feel like I ought to be able to do more things. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this around. We're going to punch it again so that we have two different borders that will go all the way across the layout. And then we'll trim them. So we're going to punch and slide. Punch and slide. There we go. All right. Aren't those cute little trees? I feel like a little bit like Bob Ross saying that, but you know. Cute little trees. All right, so now we're going to trim these, and because this is not a chain border. Now we could just cut it straight across and then it would sit right on this bottom of our page right here. Or we can get a decorative trimmer out and use that and create a wave. So here's my decorative trimmer, and you can see that I can do kind of a busier wave or a lazier wave. And for this one, because it's already got kind of a busy wave going on, I think we probably need to kind of stick with that theme. But the issue is that there are going to be places where it's going to be very, very narrow. So I can make it a little wider. We can go here to the 1 inch mark. I think that would probably be best. Otherwise, we're going to be really wreaking havoc and it's going to be too close. So with my decorative trimmer, I've learned that my blades like it when I pull towards me to cut. Yours might be different than mine, but I have learned that that works best for my decorative trimmer. So I'm placing these in the decorative trimmer, and I'm placing the corner of this corner of the paper, not the corner of the tree, but the corner of the paper at the 1 inch mark right here on the side of my trimmer. Sorry, that's at the very bottom of my screen, so it's hard for you to see, but that edge, that corner of the paper is going at the 1 inch mark, and that's going to help me to create borders that are the same width. Okay, so there's our two borders, and those should be the same now. All right, so let's assemble some of this and see where we sit with it. This piece is extra, piece is extra, and we may be cutting circles out of the dark. I don't know, we'll see. Or I might have to pull some other paper out. We'll just have to watch how this comes together. All right. So I'm going to remove my photos. We'll talk about them in a minute. I'm actually going to do one at a time. So we'll set this one back up here and I'll pull it down in a minute. So this was our last page that we just did. And we're going to take one of these and one of these. Let's do the whiter one. I'm going to put these down. So I'm going to, whenever I do a 12-inch piece, I always put about 5 spots of adhesive, about 1/2 inch each if I can keep it to that. And then depending on how wide it is, I may do 1, maybe 2, sometimes 3 in between. It just really depends. But you certainly don't need to do the whole strip. And I have seen some people go ahead and put adhesive all the way along the edge. And in truth, I used to do that. I was one of those people who thought I needed to put adhesive all the way along the edge. You don't need to do that. This adhesive is not inexpensive. It's the most reliable adhesive I know, and it's not that it's super expensive, but it's just not something that you want to go and waste. So I highly recommend that you conserve it when you can. Right? All right. So this one is the 5.5 inch, and I'm going to place it. This is going to be let's see. It's going to be about 1 inch and 1/8 right now from the left-hand side, and about 5/8 of an inch, maybe a little more from the top. We'll see if that's enough. I'm just going to sort of set that on there for right now. And then I need to come in here and add my border to the bottom. And then I also need to trim the photos that are going to go on this page so that they will fit where I want them to go. So let me grab my guillotine trimmer and let's do a little bit of trimming. So this sketch indicates that each of these photos is 3 by 5, and right now these photos are closer to 4 by 6. So I'm going to, that one's going to go over there because I can trim that one however I need to. So this one, let's start with this one. We're going to cut this to 3 inches and see if my kids are still in view. Yep, perfect. We don't lose anything by cutting that little bit off. All right, and then we need it to be 5 inches. So I'm going to come in here to the 5-inch mark and go ahead and trim that. And that keeps them relatively in the center. Okay, but because my paper is 5.5 inches wide, I cut this at 5 inches, so if this is 5.5 inches wide, it should have been fine, but actually I think this is 5 inches wide. Yeah, this is 5 inches wide. So I'm going to try and trim my photos just a little bit more so that I still have a border around them. So we're going to do 1/4 of an inch there. And see, we're going to put another 1/8 of an inch there and another 1/8 of an inch here so that we get down to 4.5 inches. All right, and then that will fit nicely right there. Okay, so let's see what we have to do to this one. This one, 3 inches is going to be right at the tabletop, which is perfect. And then the question is, do I want to try to include this over here or this over here? Because I'm going to need to take a full inch off of this, a little bit more than that, to get down to 4.5. So I'm going to trim it here so that we still have some of that in the photo. And we'll trim it here. So that we can still see most of what's there. And then let's see what we need to trim off for the family. Good, we can still retain some of the hotel in there. Their dining room was really interesting, but it felt very homey, which was really, really nice. And there. Some of the tables were actually using couches for people to sit on, which I thought was an interesting homey touch. Let's see if that works. I think I may need to kind of reorder these, because those trees are going to show up a lot better if I put this photo on the bottom. Like that. All right, and then this photo is going to go there, but we're going to trim this one up a bit as well, because we don't need all the crazy space out here. So we're going to make this one a 4.5 inch photo also. And we're going to just trim off a little here, make it a 4.5 by 3.5. Breakfast. Then we have our map of where we were headed, and I'll explain why that map looks a little bit crazy when we get a little further on here. And we have our rainbow, which I'm going to tuck in behind the border down here. Because I think it looks cool with those trees. Let's see, how do I want to do this? Like so, probably. Day 5. And then I can add a little cardstock for a journal box here to explain the craziness that is showing here. All right, so I think that will work for this page. Let's take a quick look at the next page, and then I will come back and, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and adhere this down. Alright, so you may have noticed that I didn't put adhesive on all my little trees. Part of the reason is because with a punch like this, you can put adhesive on all these little trees if you really want to, so that you don't accidentally catch them and bend them up. But because I know that I knew I was going to be putting this on top, and some of the little trees were going to be on top of a photo, I just decided that it really isn't necessary to put adhesive behind all the little trees. As long as the border is secured down here, it's not going to be going anywhere. And I will just be careful when I place the page protector over the top, and it will be fine. So we've got that page done. Let's go ahead and grab the next page and talk about options for this. Okay, so again, we're going to have some trimming to do for these, but let's get the base portions of this adhered, and then we'll talk about the photos. Okay. Now this piece is even not as wide as the other that we have over there. Remember, it's about a half-inch shorter than that other piece. So if we were to use this truly the way it's designed on the sketch over here, then we would need to cut our photos down to 4 inches. And I don't know if I really want to do that. So our photos may be going off the mat just a little bit, just because I want to utilize the paper. And that's okay, because it doesn't have to look just like the sketch. The sketch is meant for inspiration, and because it doesn't have to look exactly like the sketch, we can be flexible. Okay, so this is a picture of us as we were driving down the road. Now mind you, they drive on the opposite side of the road over there, so we were driving on the left-hand side. You can read the word slow as we're driving, because this road's going to get very curvy, and there's so much foliage. It's so dense on both sides of the road that that you just have to go really, really slow. And so you can see Tony in the rear view mirror up here, which I love. I think that's just a cool shot. So I'm gonna try to trim this in such a way that we're not going to lose too much of all of that, because I don't want to lose all of that. So let's go with about 3.5. 3.5 inches high is going to still allow us to see the dash, to realize that I was taking this from about the middle of the bus looking forward, and it had been raining, so that's part of the reason why the windshield was so kind of messy. And let's see, how wide is this? I didn't measure. So it's about 5 3/8. So let's try to make the rest of these measure 5 3/8 if we can. So they'll at least all be similar. Okay. And we're going to cut this one to 3 inches because we can. And then this one right here is also of the lovely countryside. We're going to cut this one at 3 inches as well. Let's see, maybe I'll cut a little bit of this fern off down here just to make it a little bit easier to get that 3 inches without having to compromise so much of the photo. Okay, and then we've got 3 3/8, so it's the same width as these. So those are going to be our 3 photos on this side. These are some of the things that you just drive by as you're driving through the countryside in Ireland. Pretty fantastic stuff, and definitely not what we would see driving through the countryside in America. This I'm going to try to make a square, so it's a 4-inch photo. So we're going to cut this to be a 4-inch square. You can see the stairs going up to the door in, and so I don't know if they currently use this or what. We literally just drove by it, so I have no idea, but I thought it was very interesting that those stairs look like they're used. And maybe they do tours at that particular castle. It doesn't look like it's very big, so I have no idea. This one, let's see. This one I really don't want to trim too much off of at all. But let's see, maybe we'll trim just a little bit of this jacket or seat or whatever it is that got in the way of the picture. We don't really need in there. And maybe we'll just trim just a little bit of this grass at the bottom. But I love the trees behind it, so I'm not going to trim that. Let's see if we can make that work. This is why I was saying I didn't think we were going to end up adding these circles in, because I'd rather have pictures. So, and again, when it's your album, you can adjust it however you need to adjust it. So, these are going to go here. Why is that looking? Huh. All right. And I probably need to take a little bit more off of one of those to make them fit a bit better. So let's trim this one because it's mostly sky, and I realize there's mostly sky here too, but with that branch coming down, I like that, so I don't want to get rid of that if I can help it. So I'm gonna just trim another 1/2 inch off of this. This just was a lake that we happened to drive by. I have no idea. I don't think it has really any significance to our trip. I don't remember it having any significance. So it's just some pretty scenery as we were driving along. Now, something I think I might want to consider is moving this out just a little. If I don't move it out, then I'm going to need to overlap these photos, which I could certainly do. We could certainly overlap those like that. In fact, you know what? I think that's what I'm going to do, because it's easier than disassembling things. All right, and then we've got our border that's going to go across the bottom right here, just like the other page. So it'll go across. We could lower this just a little bit so that it works better, though I want the base. If I can get the base of those photos to be the same, that would be lovely. So we'll just do like that. Okay, so let me get some of this adhered and then we'll talk some more. All right, now to line this up, I'm going to line up my pages, and then that way I can make this border hit roughly the right place. Just like that. All right, so now that gives us some space up here where we can journal, we can add embellishing, we can do lots of different things. So let's see what kind of embellishments we can put on this page. So this was actually, if I remember correctly, this was actually something that we came across as we were driving down this road, or very, very close to it. I remember seeing that on this drive. I'm looking for my stickers, but I don't have any pulled out right now because I cleaned up, guys. Woohoo! I cleaned up. Shh! I can hear you laughing. Yeah. All right, so these are from the Totally Tonal Leaves collection. Well, it's not really a collection, but the Totally Tonal Leaves, and I've used some of these in my other layouts, so they can be seen in other parts of this album. More leaves. We can add this up here and say wonderful day and have some green popping out of it. Let's grab the repositionable adhesive. We'll adhere that about like so. We can add another one. Actually, I was thinking maybe I ought to put this one on top instead of underneath. So let's wipe that off and flip it over and add some. Uh-oh. There. All right. Sometimes I get a little overzealous. Wonderful day. I'm just going to sort of add that underneath there for emphasis. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this up here, right on the edge of the page, like so. And I can write right here more about it. You're going to find as we go through the rest of the layouts for this particular day that we traveled to Blarney Castle. That will be our next layout. And then we went and saw the Choctaw, I think it was the Choctaw Nation Memorial that they have here, out here in Middleton. I think that's Middleton. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous memorial, and very fitting in remembrance of the Choctaw Nation. I think it's I may be wrong. I'll double check this before I publish it. But some Native Americans here, and I believe that's the correct nation, were very generous to the Irish people, and they provided funds which were direly needed during the famine, the Irish famine. And in gratitude, the Irish people created this gorgeous memorial to honor them. And there is now another similar memorial here in the States for them and for that event, which is very cool. I have not been there. That happened, I think that happened actually very shortly after we returned from our trip, if memory serves me correctly. All right, I think that's all I'm going to do because we've got a lot of movement down here with the trees. We've got just a lot to see on these layouts, and I don't feel like, since we've got this here as well, I don't feel like we need to add a whole lot more to it other than the journaling, which will go on these pages. So that's what I'm going to do. I will add the journaling when I find a quiet day to do that. Because I don't know about you guys, but I have I can't journal right when I do the pages. I have to wait until a quiet, actually a good rainy day is my favorite time to sit down with my scrapbooks and journal. So I'm hoping for many of those this fall. Although it's been really warm here. I don't know about you guys where you are, but it's been really, really warm here this fall so far. So we're hoping that it's going to cool off a little bit more. It's heading that direction, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. So we have had a few cooler days, which is nice. So we can have a glimmer of hope that fall is coming. I hope this has been an enjoyable session for you and given you some good ideas of ways that you can use these sketches, the virtual crop sketches, in your own albums, and the fact that you can modify them however you need to modify them. I would rather have my pictures in here than a big giant circle. If I had to give up a picture to make room for that, I just don't want to. And I don't have to. I can come up with something else. So this is the jumping off place that gives us inspiration to create what we need. Thanks so much for joining me. Until next time, I hope you have many more creative moments. Enjoy your day.